Welcome everyone! Today we are back in our live podcast, this time to discuss Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray novel. And as for this time, me, Bianca, will be your locutor. But before we begin, I would like to announce that our team has a little trivia contest for you, dear listeners. In a few minutes, I will share the quiz, and the 3 first people to send the correct answers via SMS to 9366 will win an original copy of the book and some merchandising of ours. You will have to include your full name and the city you live in to participate, so stay tuned. El retrato de Dorian Gray, a grandes rasgos, trata sobre un hombre que se mantiene joven por siempre, mientras que un cuadro de sí mismo envejece y muestra su verdadero ser. Todo comienza cuando Basil Hallward le pinta un retrato a su amigo Dorian Gray, un joven hombre bastante apuesto. Este cuadro había sido su mejor obra, o eso creía. Cuando el retratado observa la pintura, desea profundamente que la figura de la obra envejezca en su lugar, para que él, Dorian, pueda lucir joven y apuesto por siempre. Para su sorpresa, su deseo se hizo verdad y conllevaría una serie de terribles sucesos. Esto ocurre porque Lord Henry, el amigo de Basil, le enseña a Dorian que lo más importante de todo es la belleza y hacer actividades que te gustan, lo superficial. Su reflexión se basa en que cuando tu apariencia cambia, ya nadie se interesa por ti. Fue así como Dorian Gray se convenció de la perspectiva que Lord Henry le compartió y cambió su personalidad, dejando atrás al sensible y amable joven que alguna vez fue, para convertirse en una persona egoísta, narcisista e indolente con el resto. Con el paso de los años, todas las personas a su alrededor envejecían, mientras que él seguía luciendo tan apuesto y jovial como siempre. No obstante, el retrato que le hizo Basil, escondido en su ático, con cada acción mala, lucía peor. Su pintura reflejaba la forma en que el alma de Dorian se iba corrompiendo. Su nueva actitud fue la responsable de muchas muertes, como el suicidio de su comprometida y con ello el sufrimiento de toda la familia de la difunta, el asesinato de su antiguo amigo Basil, la muerte accidental del hermano de su comprometida y finalmente la de sí mismo. Dorian Gray se dio cuenta sobre su actuar y el daño que causó a muchas personas. Reflexionó que al fin y al cabo su vida no fue tan maravillosa como pretendía y pensó que tal vez si comenzaba a actuar por el bien, que si confesaba sus pecados, se desligaría del mal. Pero al creer que nadie lo tomaría en serio, en un arrebato de ira, rompió con un cuchillo el cuadro que retrataba a su alma, pero el filo no atravesó la tela, sino su cuerpo. En lo personal, me gustó mucho la forma en que la historia muestra la superficialidad de la sociedad, representado con Dorian Gray, quien se obsesiona por la manera en que luce y haciendo cualquier cosa por mantenerse así. Y me pareció muy interesante el retrato, pues se configura como un evidente símbolo de aquello que corrompe al ser, pero que se intenta esconder. Now, the trivia time you've been waiting for. Listen carefully to the questions. Question number 1. What was the profession of Basil? A. Sculptor, B. Painter, or C. Actor? Question number 2. What was the name of Dorian Gray's fiancée? A. Sibyl Vane, B. Hetty Merton, or C. Lady Narborough? Question number 3. How did people used to call Dorian Gray? A. King Charming, B. Prince Charming, or C. The Prince? Question number 4. How did Dorian die? A. Because of a chemical substance, B. Because of a gunshot, or C. Because of a knife stab? And question number 5. Who painted the picture of Dorian Gray? A. Lord Henry, B. James Vane, or C. Basil Hallward? Remember to send the correct answers via SMS to 9366, including your full name and the city you live in to participate for a copy of the book and some of our merch. So, after having this short commentary about the story's drama, wouldn't it be interesting to talk to one of the characters? As you can see, we love to have phantasmagoric entities in our podcast, so it wasn't easy to bring the guest of today. But here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Basil Hallward, the artist, from England to the world.
Oh, thank you. I'm very glad to be here. It's been so long since I didn't come to my terrenal life.
Yeah, I bet it has. Thank you for accepting to come. I've prepared some questions to have a little chat about you and Dorian. Are you ready?
Of course I am.
Excellent! So, the first question is, how did you meet Dorian?
Well, I met him during a dinner party at Lady Brandon's house, but I wasn't focused on meeting new people. I just attended, and I remember so vividly that while talking to a group of very boring people, I noticed a very handsome young man at the other side of the room. I can't explain why, but I had this strong feeling that told me this man would change my life forever. And as we all know, indeed, he did.
Yes. And can you share with us what did the friendship of you two meant to you?
At the beginning in our friendship, his beauty and sweet nature gave me a new perspective of art. It made me see life differently. We had become best friends, and he was my biggest inspiration to make art. That is also the reason why I decided to paint him.
Oh, I see. I was just going to ask why did you make a portrait of him, but I know the answer now. And I understand you both had a strong connection. Am I wrong, Basil?
No, not at all. I do think we had a strong connection, but after the portrait, or after he met Henry, that changed. He changed Dorian.
So, how and when did you start to perceive or notice that Dorian's attitude was different?
Yes, now that I think about it, it's like he changed instantly when I had finished the portrait. It's very crazy, but it might have been influenced because of what Lord Henry taught him about youth, about life pleasures, and all the importance of how we physically look, which I think is completely superficial, by the way. So when Dorian saw the portrait, he was sad, like, I dare say, jealous of his own portrait, because the paint was going to look young and handsome forever, whilst he couldn't. His reaction was not what I was expecting, so I felt kinda disappointed with my work, even if he tried to fix what he said afterwards. It wasn't long until he became very selfish and narcissistic. As I told you, he wasn't like that, but then he was very heartless with people. I first noticed this when his fiancée died. I visited him the next day it happened, and he acted like it meant nothing. He even threatened me with ending our friendship, and I know that wouldn't have been something that Dorian I met would have said. Some time passed and we distanced a lot. Our friendship wasn't the same, but I still cared about him. So again, I went to his house before leaving for Paris because I had heard a lot of bad things about him and I wanted to know what happened. It was there when he told me about the portrait.
And what did you think when you saw that the portrait was different from what you painted?
I couldn't believe my eyes. I honestly thought it was a joke and that it wasn't my painting until I saw my signature in one of the corners. It had a huge space. It looked like Dorian, but very different. Old, ugly, and with an expression of pure evil. I felt sick. The portrait seemed to be rotting from the inside. It was as if Dorian's sins were actually eating away at the canvas. After all, his wish became true, and he himself remained young and beautiful, whilst the image of him showed his true and evil self.
Wow, your description is very intense. And I have a final question for you, Basil. Now that you know what happened, what Dorian did to you, I want to ask you, if you had the opportunity to decide again whether making him a portrait or not, what would you do?
Oh, It's a very interesting question. Let me think. Well, in a larger view, showing him the portrait caused my own death, my murder. It also caused so many bad things to other people, just like his fiancée's suicide and the fiancée's brother death, and eventually his own. I don't think this Dorian was his true self. His true self was the sweet young man I met at that dinner party. The portrait, or the consciousness of the superficial, made him like this. So yes, if I had the chance to decide whether showing him the portrait or not, I would definitely not have done it.
Wow, Basil, your final reflection is very profound. Thank you very, very much for sharing this with our team and the audience. This would be all for today's interview.
It's no problem, Bianca. I hope we get to talk another time.
It was very interesting to talk with Basil, wasn't it? Also, I would like to point out that the song you've been listening to most of the time is a cover of Forever Young by IVÚB, made by Youth Group. We chose it because the main topic of the song remains about youth and reflecting if it's actually worth it to live forever. It talks about living your life in the best way possible and making the most of every moment that you have, but at what cost? Just as the starring character in the book deals with. And that will be all, dear listeners. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you were able to participate in the little trivia contest. The winners were already chosen, and just so you know, the correct answers were B, A, B, C, and C from question 1 to 5. Bye!